At exactly 3 a.m., the world doesn't just get quieter, it gets wrong. Because this is the hour when ordinary people, insomniacs, night shift workers, exhausted parents, travelers in unfamiliar rooms report the same terrifying feeling. Not a sound, not a shadow, a certainty. A certainty that someone is there. And here's the part that makes it worse. A study published in 2001 reported that apparition sightings, sensed presence, and other so-called paranormal experiences were most frequently reported between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., the same window people across cultures call the witching hour. So what does that mean? Are we brushing against something supernatural? Or are we watching the human brain break reality apart in the darkest hours, then stitch it back together into a monster? Tonight, we're stepping into the space between the observers and the observed. If you enjoy dark stories like this, subscribe to Mr. Night Terror for more. Late night disturbances aren't just about the strange things that happen. They're about what happens to you. Because when the world sleeps, your body changes, your mind changes, your perception changes, and suddenly harmless things, a settle-in house, a distant thump, a light flickering far away, stop feeling harmless. In daylight, you'd shrug. At 3 a.m., your skin goes cold. This isn't about one ghost story. It's about a pattern where the observer, the person awake in the dark, becomes vulnerable in a very specific way, and the observed, whatever is causing the disturbance, can be anything: a folklore entity, an urban legend intruder, a household spirit, or something painfully real and mundane. But in the moment, in the stillness, in the fatigue, in the darkness, those differences don't matter. Because fear doesn't ask what something is. Fear only asks one question: what if it's already inside? Picture this: a small bedroom, the kind with familiar furniture, familiar walls, the kind of room you've lived in long enough that you know every creak of the floor. And yet tonight, you're awake, not because you want to be, because you can't sleep. You stare at the ceiling. Minutes pass, then an hour. Your phone glows. 2:13 a.m. The house is quiet in a way that feels unnatural, like the air is holding its breath. Then you hear it, a sound that doesn't belong, a faint shift above you, a slow, deliberate creak. It's so subtle you almost convince yourself you imagined it, almost. Because then it happens again, another creak, then a soft thump. Your heart changes rhythm. Your brain doesn't say old house, it doesn't say pipes, it doesn't say settling wood, not at this hour. It says footsteps, and that's how it begins. Not with a scream, with a single ambiguous trigger, in a mind that's tired enough to turn uncertainty into danger. This is the first group, the insomniacs. People already trapped in a heightened sensitivity, already listening too hard, already watching shadows too closely. The quiet hours make them hyper-aware. The darkness turns their normal environment unfamiliar. And as the hours crawl forward, 2:30, 2:47, something changes. Because the longer you stay awake in the dark, the more the world starts to feel like it's watching you back. Now, shift the scene. A hospital at night. It's not haunted because of ghosts. It's haunted because it's empty. Long corridors, closed doors, fluorescent lights that hum like an insect. A night shift worker walks alone, healthcare staff, a security guard, a clerk in a convenience store, people whose jobs place them in buildings that become something else after midnight, because buildings aren't meant to be half alive. In hospitals, stories spread easily. A shadow at the end of the hall, a figure that isn't there when you blink, a cart that moved on its own. And the night shift worker has a special curse: fatigue plus solitude. Not only are they alone, they're running on a brain that's slipping towards sleep while the body is forced to stay upright. That's when the presence arrives. Not always seen, often felt. A pressure in the air, a sensation of being watched. And once you feel watched, every reflection becomes suspicious. Every sound becomes intentional. Now, another scene. A parent awake with a child. The baby won't stop crying. A sick kid tosses and turns. You've been awake for days in pieces, not nights. Your body is running on fumes. You rock the child in the dim light, half asleep, half alert. And in that state, your protective instincts sharpen into something extreme. Because your brain is wired to detect threats when you're responsible for someone vulnerable. So when you hear a whisper-like sound from the hallway, when you catch movement out of the corner of your eye, you don't calmly analyze it, you freeze, you listen, you hold your breath, and the house, your own house, suddenly feels like unfamiliar territory. Now, the fourth scene, a traveler, a hotel room, temporary lodging, unfamiliar smells, unfamiliar shadows. You don't know the building's noises. You don't know the pipes, the elevators, the footsteps in adjacent rooms. You don't know what normal sounds like here. So when the disturbance comes, a tap from the wall, a low thud above, a strange whispering sound through the vent, you don't have context. And without context, the brain fills gaps with the worst story it can imagine. These are the vulnerable witnesses, insomniacs, night shift workers, parents awake with a child, travelers in unfamiliar places, different lives, same ingredients, solitude, fatigue, darkness, and a shift in normal perception. And that shift is everything. Because once perception changes, you're no longer just experiencing the night, you're interpreting it. And interpretation is where folklore begins. This is where cultural norms frame the fear, because the human mind hates ambiguity. It craves labels. So a shadow becomes a ghost, not because you proved it, but because you've heard the story before. A light in the distance becomes a lantern, not because you verified it, but because the legend fits. Across places and cultures, late-night disturbances gain shapes that are already waiting in the imagination. Restless spirits of tragic figures. The classic, a headless railroad worker, a decapitated conductor ghost, a man wandering with a lantern searching for what was taken from him. One of the most well-known examples comes from North Carolina, Mako Light. The story claims a railroad worker was decapitated in a train accident and now wanders the tracks with a lantern searching for his head, seen as a glowing light along old tracks at night. And the thing about these legends is that they feel plausible because they attach to real-world tragedy. Railroads had accidents, people died violently, communities remembered. So at night, when someone sees a glow in the distance near old tracks, their brain doesn't start with optics or atmosphere. It starts with him, the man who never found peace. Then there are protective household spirits in some cultures, entities believed to watch over homes, benevolent but startling, making noises or creating a presence that can feel comforting or deeply unsettling when you're alone. And then there are menacing figures, the intruder story that never dies, the babysitter and the man upstairs. A babysitter alone in a house, creepy calls, the twist that makes every listener's blood turn cold. The call is coming from inside the house. The legend dates to the 1960s, and it survives because it doesn't require the supernatural. It requires something worse, a human, someone hiding upstairs, someone close enough to hear you breathe. Late-night disturbances thrive here, where folklore and realism overlap, because whether it's a ghost or an intruder, the emotional effect is identical. You are not alone. But now, the story takes a darker turn, because sometimes the observed isn't a spirit, it isn't a legend, it's something mundane, but still terrifying. Sleep phenomena, parasomnias. A partner sits up in bed suddenly, eyes open, staring into a dark corner like they're seeing something you can't see. A person sleep talks, somniloquy, muttering phrases that sound eerily coherent, cryptic, even threatening, in a flat voice that doesn't feel like them. Or worse, REM sleep behavior disorder, where a person acts out dreams, shouts, screams, lashes out, as if fighting someone you can't see. To the awake observer, it can feel possessed. Not because it is, because your brain doesn't understand what it's seeing in the dark. And then there are the noises that aren't even human. Neighbors install motion-activated predator or animal repellents, devices that emit high-pitched sounds to scare wild.
Inside the witching hour, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., the human body enters a state it was never designed to handle while fully awake. This is not superstition, this is biology. During these hours, core body temperature drops to its lowest point. Alertness crashes. Melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep, reaches a peak. And while the body wants to shut down, some people are still awake, tense. That mismatch creates a dangerous imbalance, because when rational control weakens, the brain's threat detection system takes over, low tone. The amygdala, your fear center, becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex, the part that says, calm down, this is probably nothing, loses authority, slow. This is why neutral stimuli stop feeling neutral. A shadow isn't just just a shadow. A sound isn't just a sound. The brain begins searching for intention. Tense. This is also the window when sleep transitions become unstable. People drift in and out of light sleep without realizing it, and this is where some of the most terrifying experiences are born. Low tone. Hypnagogic hallucinations, vivid images or sounds that appear as you fall asleep. Hypnopompic hallucinations, equally vivid experiences as you wake up. Figures standing at the foot of the bed, whispers close to the ear, the unmistakable sense that someone is in the room. Whisper. Often paired with sleep paralysis, the body remains frozen, locked in REM atonia, while the mind wakes up fully aware. Tense. You can't move, you can't speak, you can only watch. Slow. And the brain, desperate to explain the paralysis, invents a reason, an intruder, a shadow, a presence pressing down on your chest. Tense. Across cultures, these experiences take different shapes: demons, hags, spirits, jinn, but the structure is always the same. Something is here, and it means harm. Low tone. In 2001, neuroscientist Michael A. Persinger published findings in the Journal of Neuropsychiatry and Clinical Neurosciences showing that apparition sightings and sensed presences were reported most frequently between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., not because spirits arrive on schedule, but because the human brain becomes unusually sensitive during this window, particularly in the temporal lobes, which are involved in perception, emotion, and meaning. Slow. When those regions misfire, the experience doesn't feel imaginary, it feels real, painfully real. Tense. This is why so many people describe the same details without ever meeting each other. The same hours, the same fear, the same certainty that they were not alone. Low tone. And once culture steps in, the experience gains a name. Whisper. The history behind the fear. Long before neuroscience existed, people noticed something was different about the night. Slow. In Christian tradition, the canonical hours of prayer deliberately avoided the deepest part of the night. That silence, where prayer stopped, was believed to leave the world unguarded. Low tone. Later, literature gave that fear a voice. In Shakespeare's Hamlet, written around 1600, the night is described as a time when churchyards open and hell itself breathes into the world. Tense. The phrase witching hour took root. Over time, midnight shifted to 3 a.m., called the devil's hour, a mocking inversion of 3 p.m., the hour associated with Christ's death. Slow. Across Europe and beyond, folklore reinforced the idea. This was when witches worked, when demons roamed, when spirits walked freely. Whisper. But here's the twist that history never explained. Tense. The night never changed. We did. Low tone. Because every era reports the same phenomena, just framed differently. Centuries ago, people spoke of ghost lights. The Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina, glowing orbs reported for generations, later tied to Cherokee legends of spirits searching for lost warriors. The Marfa Lights in Texas, first documented in 1883, long before cars or electric infrastructure, baffling settlers who mistook them for campfires that vanished when approached. These sightings didn't disappear with technology, they multiplied. Low tone. Modern explanations point to atmospheric effects, distant lights refracted by temperature layers, or other optical phenomena. But when you see them alone at night from a dark road, your brain doesn't reach for physics, it reaches for meaning. Slow. And meaning always comes from story. Low tone. Today, the same fear spreads digitally. Creepypastas, urban legends, ritual games shared online. Stories like Japan's bath game, where a spirit follows the player all day after a nighttime ritual. Or Hawaii's night marchers, ghostly warriors said to punish anyone who looks at them directly. Tense. Different cultures, different myths, same fear. Because the fear isn't in the story, it's in the timing. Whisper. Why the night feels alive. Late night dread isn't random, slow. It follows a process. First, a trigger.
trigger, a sound, a shadow, a light that shouldn't be there. Second, interpretation. A tired brain connects it to a familiar narrative: ghost, intruder, presence, low tone. Third, reaction. The heart races, the body freezes, curiosity and terror fight for control, tense. And finally, resolution. Morning comes, light returns, and suddenly explanations appear. Pipes, animals, sleep phenomena, technology, atmospheric effects. Most mysteries dissolve with daylight, but the memory doesn't. Slow. Because the fear felt real, low tone. And that's the truth no one likes to admit. The night doesn't create monsters, it reveals how easily the human mind can create them on its own, tense. When silence grows heavy, when darkness hides detail, and when exhaustion strips away logic, the brain does what it evolved to do. It assumes danger, low tone. Not because it's weak, because once, long ago, that instinct kept us alive. And even now, in safe houses, quiet bedrooms, modern cities, the night still knows how to press that ancient button.
The observer is the key. By the time morning arrives, most late-night disturbances lose their power. The shadow that felt tall and intentional becomes a coat on a chair. The footsteps above turn out to be pipes contracting. The distant light fades into a memory that no longer feels solid. And that's the unsettling truth. Not because the experience was fake, but because the fear was real. Late-night unease is not about what appears in the dark. It's about who is awake to see it. The observer matters more than the observed, because every reported encounter, every sensed presence, every whisper, every moving shadow follows the same internal pattern: a human mind caught in a vulnerable state, fatigued, isolated, surrounded by silence. At night, the brain loses its usual anchors. Vision weakens, hearing sharpens, imagination fills the gaps. And when meaning is missing, the mind creates it. This is why the most common locations of fear aren't ancient ruins or cursed forests. They're bedrooms, living rooms, hospital corridors, hotel rooms, cars parked on empty roads. Familiar places made unfamiliar by darkness. How fear builds itself. Every nocturnal scare unfolds in stages. First, the notice. Something small breaks the silence. A creak, a flicker, a sound without a clear source. Second, the story. The tired brain reaches for explanation, and culture provides it. A ghost, an intruder, a spirit, a presence. Third, the reaction. Adrenaline surges. The body freezes or investigates. The moment stretches far longer than it should. And finally, the release. Morning arrives. Perspective returns. Logic steps back in. Most experiences resolve, but some don't. Some remain unanswered. And those are the ones that stay with us, not because they prove the supernatural, but because they expose how thin the line is between certainty and fear. Nocturnal unease survives across centuries because it serves a purpose. It warns, it sharpens attention, it keeps us alert when we are most vulnerable. Long before locks, lights, or security systems, night meant danger. Predators hunted in darkness. Visibility dropped. Survival depended on assuming the worst. That wiring never left us. Modern life removed the threat, but not the instinct. So when the world goes quiet at 3 a.m., the brain still listens like something is hunting. And sometimes that feeling is so strong, it becomes a presence. Not because something is there, but because the brain believes something could be there. If you've ever lain awake at night, frozen by a sound you couldn't explain, if you've ever felt watched in an empty room, or sensed something move when nothing should have, you're not broken, you're human. And if this story made you look at the night a little differently, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true explorations into the strange, the psychological, and the unexplained. Because the scariest stories aren't always about what hides in the dark. Sometimes they're about what wakes up inside us when the lights go out.